Good morning and welcome to this BCN Group webinar. Today we're going to be looking at PowerApps, getting a return on your investment. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to come and join us this morning, and I'd like to welcome you from whatever organisation you have come from. Some of you will be sitting at home, some of you will be in the office, some of you might be live like me, so you get to see my whole body today rather than just my shoulders. Today's session is specifically on PowerApps, but we'll be taking a little bit of a gander around the Power Platform. And if you're using Power Platform already, hopefully I'll be able to give you some insights in some of the things that we do within the BCN Group. If you've never heard of the Power Platform before, or not sure which bits connects to which bits, I'll hopefully give you a little bit of a demo so you can see that. So as I say, welcome. Today's session on PowerApps, getting a return on your investment. First of all, I'd like to give you a very brief introduction as to who the BCN Group are. The BCN Group are trusted advisors focusing on customers. Since 2009, BCN Group have been delivering managed service and supporting business critical technologies, solutions across both cloud and on-premise. The BCN Group look at all sorts of things with regards to security, software and telecoms, but also we're trusted advisors, and that's one of the key differences with the BCN Group. I work within the Cloud 2 organisation, and we specifically focus on the analytics and business processes, business tools. The BCN Group covers a number of different verticals, and we support more than 1,200 clients. We have a high customer retention rate of 98%, and we focus on a number of different activities, specifically direct CSP, but we're also obviously a Microsoft Gold partner. What about me? This one's a bit easier. My name is Fraser, and I put my hands up and say I'm a self-confessed Microsoft Power Platform addict. I'm passionate about people and processes, and the point at which those two things come together, invariably technology. I like to think I'm creative in both design and approach, and the thing that really gets me are data insights and how we visualize those to the user, and guess what they do about them. My background is laser physics. I've got a PhD, and I spent many years basically blowing things up, doing a dental ceramics manufacturing PhD. After that, I then moved on to work at the atomic weapons establishment. Guess what? Trying not to blow things up. But then I went to work for a company called SPI Lasers. At SPI Lasers, my role was to take what was a fiber laser system and turn it into something that was as easy as possible to integrate. And guess what? The machines don't integrate it, it's people that do that activity. So you'll start to see there's a theme here. After that, I then went on to work on a global service organization model, bringing all three parts of the globe, Asia, Central Europe, and America together with one centralized system. I then went to work at Marley, looking at operational transformation using data. So it was really getting rid of those paper processes, our lovely friend Excel, trying to minimize the use of Excel or use it where it needs to be used, not where it shouldn't be used, and resolving those manual processes. Oh, I've got a bit of paper that you need to get approval for. How do we remove that from our business and actually make it more efficient? Now I work for Cloud 2. As I mentioned before, specializing in analytics, but also those business process tools. And guess what? Generally trying not to blow things up. So what's the agenda today? Well, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be looking at the Microsoft Power Platform. What are Power Apps and how do we use them? How would a Power Platform ecosystem help you within your organization? And then we'll look at some real life use cases. There'll then be an opportunity for you to ask questions. Hopefully I'll be able to answer them. But if you've never come across Power Platform before, I want you to just take a moment to think about your business, think about your organization. I can almost guarantee there'll be Excel somewhere within that system. There'll be maybe some Access databases, maybe some SQL. You've probably got some Word documents that you kind of copy and paste things over into. There's bound to be a PowerPoint presentation that goes to your board at some point. Imagine all of those tools came together and had a baby. That's what Power Platform is. It brings together the best elements from each of those Microsoft tools and puts it into a low-code platform that basically anybody within your organization can build upon to create a business solution, end-to-end, start to finish. So let's have a quick dive in and see what it looks like. So within the Power Platform, there are 4 main pillars: Power Virtual Agents, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI. So each one of these does a very different function within the Power Platform. Power Virtual Agents is a little bit like a chatbot. It enables you to build some really easy dialogue, question and answer. Nothing revolutionary there. But what it does is it also enables you to conversationalize your process. Hi there, Fraser. Can you tell me about this job? Yes, I spent 5 hours on that job. Great, that piece of data can then be stored inside your process via the chatbot, rather than going to an application and typing it in. Power Apps is that application development platform. Think about that paper process where you need to write down a couple of things on a bit of paper, you need to get it to a supervisor to sign it off. It then goes to your finance team who might key it into a finance package, and then there'll be a chart that's created at the end. Power Apps can give you all of that in one place. It can also embed Power BI, so you can get a full ecosystem within one application, end-to-end data entry right through to analytics. Power Automate is the process engine of the Power Platform. It connects together all of the dots. It can run trigger events. It can run automation. It can run the approvals part of your application that you built. And last but certainly not least is Power BI. Power BI has been around for, in fact, the whole platform has been around for a number of years. And invariably what you see here is this is where the analytics are brought to life. So you've got your usual things like charts and graphs and diagrams, but you've also got insights and you've also got triggers when you could say, oh, actually this piece of data is heading towards a limit. Actually, let's send a message through Power Platform to let people know we're getting a bit close to our KPI there. Maybe there's something that we can do proactively to stop it breaching. Now, underpinning the Power Platform are 3 further pieces of technology, which you may or may not have heard of or know about. Data connectors are critical because data connectors allow the Power Platform to connect outside the boundaries of the platform. So for the marketeers amongst us, that might be a LinkedIn connector. For people that are looking for data, that might be an SQL connector. There are hundreds of connectors. I actually had a little note on here to say how many there was, but I checked it yesterday and it's changed because connectors are being added all the time. One of the other really important things about the data connector piece is if there's not a connector there for you, you can build one. You can build, so long as there's an API, you can build a connector which is fit for your purposes with the boundaries that you set into the connector. The AI builder, part of Power Automate at the moment, is quite simply revolutionary as far as the platform is concerned. Within AI Builder, there are 8 basic models. And those models enable a citizen developer or somebody that doesn't understand code to build a sophisticated artificial intelligence model. Let's use a quick example. I've got 10 pictures in front of me with the Cloud2 and the BCN logos on them. What I can do is I can program the AI Builder to count the number of times those logos appear. Then I can send a picture in from Power Apps or Power Virtual Agents to the AI Builder. And the AI Builder will analyze that image in real time and respond back with an answer. Now that's a really simple example, but it can also do form processing. It can also do business card reading. In fact, so long as it's something that's logic, you could build any application inside with AI to automate and simplify your processes. And the last picture on the screen is Dataverse. Now, I could do a 3-hour webinar on just on Dataverse. But one of the big things to bear in mind is Dataverse, for the uninitiated, is essentially Microsoft's version of SQL. For a mindset, it's just a database, but actually it's so much more. There's security embedded. There's literally, it's a huge piece of software. Fundamentally, simple to use, powerful Microsoft product. Scalable, governable, compliant, and secure. So that's Power Platform. Now, if we just take a little bit of a step back and open up our horizon just for a moment, where does Power Platform sit inside that Microsoft stack? Because this is really important to understand. Power Platform sits sandwiched directly in between Azure and the application layer. Why is that important? Says maybe one or two of you. Well, it's important because actually Power Platform doesn't have direct access to data unless it goes through Azure. So if I'm inside the Power Platform environment, querying, let's say, a Dataverse database, I may not have authority to access that particular cell within Dataverse. Now that's hugely important because that's being controlled by Azure. So what does that mean? Well, the Azure handles security. It can also help with data flows. Can I access that data stream? Can I not? As an individual, am I licensed to be able to access that? Do I have the authority? Can I change it? Can I update it? Can I delete it? All of those things are controlled via Azure. Logic can be applied in the Power Platform within Power Automate, but it can also be applied directly within Dataverse. And so you can build business process flows in Dataverse, which actually your users are forced to go through, if that's what you choose to do, if that's what you need. Storage, as I've already mentioned, is provided by Dataverse. But again, this is another key differentiator with the Power Platform because it means that you can connect to data storage within the Microsoft stack, but you can also connect outside the environment, looking at anything that you can think of. Let's just stick with SQL. It's nice and straightforward, and most people will understand what that is. A lovely database, we set up a connector, Power Platform connects directly out of the Microsoft stack, queries the database and brings the information back in, or writes, or whatever it is that you need to do. So that's why it's important to understand where Power Automate and where the Power Platform sits within the Microsoft stack, because it's really important to understand what goes up and down within that stack. So let's do a quick demo. What we're going to do is we're going to look at Power Virtual Agents. Some of you may not have seen this before. Now, again, I could do a whole webinar just on Power Virtual Agents, so I'm just going to give you a very quick sneak peek. We're going to look at a Power Virtual Agent which is native. So this is literally for demonstration purposes. But bear in mind that Power Virtual Agents can be embedded in almost anything. So if your organization uses Teams, you can create a Power Virtual Agent to make it look and feel like an individual within Teams. You can embed it in Slack, in Facebook, in Kik. You can embed it on your website. There's so many places that Power Virtual Agents can make a definable difference. So let's have a quick look. So here we are. Here's the chatbot screen, as I'm sure you're quite familiar with. And first of all, I'm just going to type in hello. Immediately, we get a response back to say, hi there, I'm Apollo. This is just somebody that I've made up. As you can imagine, I've made up quite a lot of things here. But what I'm actually going to do is show you a quick demonstration of a question which is actually about Power Platform. So what is Power Platform? You can create some options down the bottom. I'm going to say, OK, let's have a look at Power Virtual Agents. So here, we've given a quick static answer, and then, again, provided the user with some questions. What are the capabilities? How much does it cost? Within the capabilities, one of the key things is it Teams or is it not? My user here has clicked Teams, and what's happening is we get a little web link. You could build all of this into the chatbot, but actually, let's send it back. Shall I email you the web link? Sure. What's your email address? Please do not email this website. Please do not send anything to this email address. This is a dummy email. But you can see what happens. Sure, great, I've sent that to your inbox. Job done. Did I answer your question? Sure. Little bit of feedback, and that's all stored within the chatbot itself. So what else can it do? What's the weather? So my colleagues in Bradford today, let's find out. What's the weather like for you today? Now, needless to say, I did record this the other day, so it's not today's weather, but you get the general gist. Here's some information that we've queried from a database. And what do you want to do with the answer? Shall I text you the summary? Yeah, that'd be great. Once again, guess what? What's your mobile phone number? This is not my mobile phone number, people. Do not send me a message because I won't get it. Enter mobile phone number, job's a good one, off it goes. Apollo responds back and says, yep, that's been sent. Perfect, a little bit of feedback. Can I help you with anything else? No. So what you can see here is a very quick example of what happens when we engage a chatbot service with some data and a user. All of that, if you imagine a different topic, something about your organization, Maybe it's HR, maybe it's something to do with payroll, maybe it's questions about the organisation, maybe it's onboarding. All of these things can automate and enhance what you already have, and in some cases, create a much more engaging environment for your users. The other thing I should just point out is that was clearly driven by me, the end user, typing in, chatting away to Apollo. But you can get Apollo to directly contact your users when a trigger occurs. Hey guys, just remember, expenses are due by the end of the month. Today's the 30th, you've got 24 hours left. So you can engage the chatbot in a different way. Okay, let's move on to Power Apps. Again, this is a huge platform, and there's no way I can show you the entirety of this platform. But what I'm going to do today is show you a very brief demo of utilizing a mobile phone's hardware to enhance what you would normally get just from the Power Platform. Power Apps can be utilized on both desktop, tablets, and mobile phones. And you build one app, and it can essentially go across any technology stack. It doesn't need to be Apple or Android. You build it independent. Once you publish it, the user then consumes it on a device that they so choose. Let's jump into this demo. So what I'm doing is I'm just showing you the screen from my mobile phone. This is just a standard smartphone. This is nothing special. So it's really important to understand that this is just, a bog standard smartphone, because what I'm going to show you here are two things. First of all, here I am, I've logged in. This menu screen has been devised specifically for me as the user. And at the bottom, we've got an RSS feed. So what's happening here? We're getting users engaged on their mobile phone with something which is not necessarily directly business dependent, but it's something that might be of interest to them to keep them in the app. All of the screens there have been created on the fly, and we're just going to jump into the warehouse management screen here. Let's do a quick stock check. Clearly, I'm not in the warehouse today, and I definitely don't usually want to look at whatever these lovely devices are, bearings, but you get an idea. So I've got a little demo here, quickly looking at my data matrix. Oh, that didn't work. Wonder why not? We'll come to that in a second. Using the technology on your mobile phone, we're utilizing the barcode reading functionality. Very quickly, as you saw there, quickly scan barcode and it brings up the data. Let's try another one. Perfect. Quick scan, job done. Let's look at the image. Is that the one I've got in my hand? Yep, it is. Great. I know that there's 5 of them in stock in the stores right now. Awesome. So this is an example of whereby you can get data into the hands of a user, and it doesn't even need to be a company phone. This can be bring your own device. The other thing that we're very quickly going to look at is mixed reality, because this is something that's come to the Power Platform and something that really is quite exciting. So here we've got a very quick model that's been created here at Cloud 2. Yep, okay, fine. Moving it around on my phone, no big deal. But let's look at that in mixed reality. So here I am last week, moving around in the office, out into the corridor, and I'm going to put that model into mixed reality. And let's have a little walk around. I think you actually get an opportunity to see my feet here, which will be thrilling for viewers of this webinar, I'm sure. But you can see the impact that this could have. Just imagine putting all of your products into 3D models and being able to show your client live on a mobile phone what that might look like in the real environment for your client. Transformational. And this is just using a normal mobile phone. Now, one of the things I didn't mention, and I said I would come back to, was that data matrix. When you're using the barcode scanner, you can actually explain and you can tell Power Apps not to scan a certain type of barcode for one screen, and then utilize the data matrix for another type of activity. And that way it enables making sure that your users, it's called Pokioki, making sure that your users actually don't scan the wrong thing. So you can build all of that logic directly into Power Apps. Okay, so what about Power Automate? So Power Automate, as I explained before, is that kind of brain. It's that process engine that's built in to the Power Platform. Now you'll be pleased to know I'm not actually going to show you a demo for this because we've already shown you a number of demos. If you imagine back to that first Power Virtual Agents chat, we were querying some data and then we sent an email. We've used a connector for that and a logic flow. What was the user's name? What was the user's email address? What is it that we want to send them? So that's one process flow. Then we asked it to send a text. Again, a different connector because we're using a different service. What was the phone number? What is it that we actually want to send them? Then we asked what the weather was. Okay, the weather's a little bit more complex because we've got to think about location, geography, and then also accessing a service that can provide us with the right information. Now, all of those connectors that we talked about are free. They're part of the non-premium service. There are lots of premium connectors out there, which shall remain nameless, but you'll come to them. And once you do, that's when you need to start to think about licensing. The other connector that we utilised for the barcode scanning app was SharePoint, because that data and the images were all stored in SharePoint. So again, I'm querying with PowerApps. The connector to SharePoint, which is actually part of Power Automate, is doing the work to get the data back for the user to use. And that's how Power Automate works. I've really skimmed the surface because there's a huge amount there, also particularly with regards to the AI technologies, which we'll cover hopefully maybe in another session like this. The last piece is Power BI. Now again, I could give you a fancy demonstration of Power BI, but what I thought I would do here is just actually show you one of the more newer items that have come to Power BI recently. It's called goals. So if you imagine all of our traditional good data analytics and insights that are coming from Power BI, this is actually a new feature which enables you to build goals directly into Power BI, and then using the Power BI interface, keep those goals up to date. Now, if you imagine in the big picture, I have my goal, but my goal impacts a parent goal, and that impacts a parent goal, and that impacts a parent goal. So actually you can build a hierarchy of goals and opportunities and thoughts and feelings about how your organization is performing and get the analytics all in one environment. So hopefully that has given you a good overview of where we are with the Power Platform as a whole. So let's look at Power Apps specifically. Let's do a quick deep dive. I'll try and keep this as brief as possible. So what's inside the box? Power Apps are business apps, and it's bound by your Azure tenant. That's really important to bear in mind because Power Apps as a tool isn't designed for public consumption. Terms and conditions apply. We'll come to that in the last slide. But generally, when you're thinking about Power Apps, think about it for my business, for my employees. They are really fast to develop and deploy. Connections come through all sorts of different places, as I've mentioned with Power Automate. And the whole idea about Power Platform is it's low code. Don't get sucked in by the Microsoft no code. It's not. It's definitely low code. Yep, you can build something pretty quick that doesn't have any code in it. But as soon as you want to be able to connect to other services and other data sets, that's when you need to start to think about, well, what's the most performant way to get that information? I could write a quick and nasty query that brings back 10,000 pieces of data. Wow, that's going to be pretty slow on my mobile phone. But actually, if I think about how I set that query up, that's when you can get some really slick performant applications. There's lots of other things on the slide there, which I'm sure you can all read. There are two main flavors of Power Apps. We're going to start with model-driven apps. As the name suggests, you need a data model to build a model-driven app. And that data model has to come from Dataverse. So if you don't have a Dataverse database within your environment, you won't be able to create a model-driven app. And it's something I see all the time. When I go into an organization, somebody will go, oh, let's create a model-driven app. But actually their environment doesn't have Dataverse. And so you get to the first screen and then you go, oh God, this looks really difficult. How do I make this work? Actually, these apps are super quick to build because you don't need to think about the user interface. And that's because you can't. It's pretty set up. It's standardized for a very good reason. You build one app with model-driven and you can use it on your mobile phone because it self-organizes itself. It puts everything that you need together on one screen. If you then view it on a tablet or a massive screen, it will auto-scale to fit that space. These have been designed with data and logic and process in mind. So if you've got a very complex process, a model-driven app might be the way to go. It helps guide users through with a very standardized layout. Canvas apps, on the other hand, are where your creative minds can kind of run wild. You can create really bespoke pieces of code and low code to really revolutionize the way that your users interact with data. This can be as simple or as complex as you like. It can have one button, it can have 100 buttons. It can have some galleries, it can have all sorts of different elements that essentially makes it just fit for you. This is an example of a standard Canvas app, something kind of off the shelf. This will take a few minutes to build. On the left-hand side, you've got a list. And on the right-hand side, you kind of got like a gallery and you can kind of see forms and you can see images. But one of the big things with Canvas apps, and one of the big things that we do at Cloud2, is think about the user experience. And so what you're seeing at the bottom is actually a designed element of exactly the same platform. So it's still a Canvas app, but we've actually embedded some Power BI. That little ring diagram is actually a Power BI element, which is giving feedback to the user on the front screen. You can actually rebuild that kind of list view interface into something that looks and feels more real for the user. Perhaps you're trying to image or mirror an existing business system. Perhaps you've got a brand that you want to maintain within your organization. Now, last year, PowerApps came out with this thing called hybrid, and everyone was like, hurrah, you can do both model-driven and Canvas in the same app. But terms and conditions apply here, because at the bottom, you'll see an example of a hybrid app. You've got to still use Dataverse, because if you look closely, the outside section is actually a model-driven app, and the inside section is a Canvas app. So you can embed a Canvas app inside a model-driven app, which gives you this hybrid feel, but it's still technically a model-driven app. So just bear that in mind. There isn't a utopia where you can create a Canvas app with the model-driven app inside it. That currently still doesn't exist. And last of all, my initial comment about thinking about Power Apps as something for your business. Power Apps also has something called portals. Portals enable external visitors to come into your data environment. And so without kind of twisting too far away from the purpose of this demonstration today and this webinar today, all you can bear in mind is that portals enable external users to come in and utilize your data, a little bit like your existing web portals that you may have. But there are other parts to Office 365 and Dynamics 365 in particular, where portals really come into their own. Again, staying within the boundaries of today, we'll just say that portals exist and stop there. But there is an awful lot more in portals, particularly when it comes to things like customer self-service, employee self-service, partner portals. You know, you can create forums and ticketing systems, all using Power Apps. Okay, so some of you will have already known all of that information and actually here today to say, well, how am I going to get my return? I've spent all that money on licenses. What's happening with it in my organization? Why are we not seeing some of these amazing solutions inside our organization? So I've got some slides here, which are, some of them are my hints and tips. Some of them are from, let's just say, mistakes that may have been made in the past, but mistakes are opportunities to grow. So I'll try and give you some general overviews and then also try and give you some specific guidance. So, big picture, Power Platform, low code. So why am I paying all that money for my developers? Power Platform's been specifically designed to take the power away from traditional developers and into the hands of your business team, the people that have got the actual problem. Now, casting no aspersions, but I guarantee you, all of you within your organizations will have this kind of black hole where one system stops and then another system starts, and there'll be someone somewhere going, I need a business tool for this. And they'll be scouring the market and they'll be doing some analysis and there'll be lots and lots of conversations about getting vendors in, build it in Power Platform. You can connect to the original data source, do the bit of processing that you need, and then punt it out to the final end place, all using Power Platform. Or get rid of the other two vendors and build the whole thing in Power Platform. It's that bespoke. You can make anything from Power Platform. Some people think Power Platform means quick fix, kind of dirty. It's not. This is globally scalable. and secure at the same time. However, it's critical that you think about the impacts, both technically, culturally, because it does have a huge impact to your individual operators within your organization, and think about compliance. Compliance is really, really important. Some parts of compliance are handled by Power Platform, other parts you need to think about. So work out what your risk appetite is. How far do we want to go with this? Do we want to dip our toe in the water, or do we want a big bang activity? What's your data strategy? Do I want everything in one place? Am I going to put everything into some external storage? Am I going to utilize the power of Dataverse? Then think about your security model. We'll talk about this a little bit more on the next slide, but it's so important because actually when you open up the doors of connectors, I'm just going to post everything to Twitter. Yeah, that's probably not a good idea. So really think about what security model you want for your organization and where your red lines really are. And then licensing. I mentioned before AI, and I've built loads of little fun tasks within AI just to kind of play with the platform. But it's a consumption-based model. And so if you don't think about your licensing in advance, it may all of a sudden come and bite you at the other end because actually it is a consumption-based model. So really think about your license plan before you start to roll out some of your applications. On the other side, think about communication. This is a huge platform and actually it's transformational. I've seen it with my own eyes from industry, this working. I've seen the change in our shop floor employees when they go, someone was listening and actually they've created a solution for us because they've thought about how we use it. So it is transformational. Communicate that within your organization and then find that person. I know because I was that person who says, this isn't good enough. Why are you not doing more for us? Because they're the people that can build these solutions within the Power Platform for you. Now, there'll be some of you who are sitting right now, or perhaps standing like me, thinking, my God, this sounds incredible. But there will be others of you going, this sounds terrifying. We're going to let people in our organizations develop applications with no controls. Don't worry, this slide is just for you. So within the Power Platform, you can create environments, and each of those environments can be controlled independently. Now, for a big multinational organization, you might want to break it down into countries, or maybe regions within the UK, or maybe even divisions for each part of your organization. Each one of those environments can be controlled completely separately and contain completely different data sets. Now, it wouldn't be a good practice session if I didn't talk about 3 stages of development. So we've got sandbox, quality, and production environment. Those might be something that you really want to start to consider. If you're going to build complex Power Apps, you really want to test them properly before you deploy them. And so when you start your Power Apps journey or your Power Platform journey, you all start with just one environment. Think about how you want to structure that going forward. Then start to think about, well, do I want to create a developer hub? A way to control the developers within your organization. That might be with a business lead or somebody that's within your IT organization who's got a passion for this kind of technology, and they can train, coach, and be engaged with those business needs. Keep a track of who's created an app and touch base with them to say, hey, do you need any help? Or are you quite happy to go on with this yourself? Then I would suggest taking a look at the Microsoft Center of Excellence. Within Microsoft, there is a team specifically dedicated about the best practice, and it constantly changes. And on the screen, you can see our QR code or go to the link. This is a collection of tools, documents, visualizations, which administer, govern, and nurture your Power Platform environment. It's not just Power Apps, it's the entire environment. So you can really look across your entire estate at what's going on. Look at bottlenecks, look at centers where things are really happening, and look at areas that, to be fair, could do with a little bit of help. And you can see all of that within this special environment that you can create. And last of all, think about engaging security on your data. As I mentioned earlier on, you can control all the data sets directly via Azure within the Microsoft stack and apply data loss prevention policies to make sure that a very inspired young individual within your organization, or maybe not so young, doesn't press send to Twitter, because that would be a disaster. Now, Return of investment. This is not straightforward. Forrester have had a go at it, and this was a published paper in February of 2021 this year. And they suggest that you can have 502% return of investment. Okay, wow, that's quite a lot. But over what periods, and how did they calculate that? Please feel free and go and look at this paper. Application development cost reduction, 48%. Woo! Hang on a minute, we don't produce applications. Okay, not sure. What I want you to think about is, think back to those demos I did. So here we've got a mobile phone application which has dynamic application in it, as in this particular person has a health and safety app, a warehouse management app, a mixed reality app, and a maintenance logging app with some feeds. How long would it have taken you within your organization today to create that app? I did that in 4 hours. Now, that's not to say that I can do that. The whole point of this platform is it's about speed. That's where the game changer is. Going from concept to delivery live within 4 hours, I think is a game changer in the market today. That's your return of investment. Chatbot, cool. We've got all of the content, all of these Q's and A's for all sorts of the Power Platform. We've got something about weather, whether that's relevant or not, but you get the general idea. How long would that sort of technology have taken for your organization to create? That was done in 1 hour. So the demonstrations didn't necessarily look as nice as I'd like them to have done, but functionally, hopefully you can see here why Microsoft Power Platform low code is a game changer. It's all about that time from concept to delivery. Okay, use cases. Well, this is tricky because I first sat down and thought, well, let's think about it from a vertical perspective. Let's think about, okay, hospitality, where could it be used? And then I thought, okay, well, what about administration support? And then I literally started writing this list, and there is not a use case. I can't think every single thing I think of. I think, well, actually, Power Platform could do that. And perhaps for some of you more seasoned amongst you, you may remember when the phrase was, there's an app for that. Well, actually, there's a Power App for that. And if you think about your organization, think about where those pain points are, something within Power Platform can help you with that. If it's about data, people, and process, the answer is yes, Power Platform. If it's about getting insights back to users from that interesting piece of data, Power BI, that's Power Platform. If it's about engaging your business with thoughts and insights back from your data set, Power Virtual Agents, that's Power Platform. So, as I say, I've tried to give you a very brief overview of use cases here, but the problem is there isn't a limit. It's really down to what you want for your organization. So just bear with me a moment here. Play my game. Think about Scotland for just a moment. What is it that comes to your mind when you think of Scotland? Being Scottish, you can imagine I've got lots of things running around my mind. Some of you may be thinking Highlands. Some of you may be thinking Highland cows, maybe haggis, maybe Highland games. When you think of Scotland, you think of something. So what do you think your employees think about when they think about their business systems? Do they think, oh, this is exciting, this is engaging, this is for me, this is built for me on my mobile phone, data in hand, insightful? Or do they think of something else? So final slide from me. What are my key takeaway points? From what I've shown you today, there's clearly two sides to the Power Platform. There's a very specific strategic part, but there's also this kind of creative, what could we do in this space? So my ideas here are, from a strategic perspective, you need vision. You definitely need one. What is it that you want? You need to have a strategy, and you need to communicate it really well to make sure that your business knows what it is you're trying to achieve with the platform. You definitely need control. You need to control your data, you need to control your environments, and you need to control security. And planning. Planning is so important. I'm sure everyone knows this on this call already, but this platform is moving rapidly. And so you need to plan for evolution within the platform. And of course, plan governance. Governance is one of those things that tends to kind of, especially in fast-moving pieces, may get forgotten about or may get put on the back burner. Really think about how you're going to build governance into your platform. And on a creative side, this is where I kind of come into my own, I suppose, think about the empowerment of your people. This is not an IT problem. This is a, oh, what could we do problem. So think about your people because they know your process is best. Maybe not how they're supposed to be done, but how they're actually done. Encourage. It definitely won't work first time. There will be problems along the way. And I think I mentioned this earlier on. The number of times that I've done something and it's not quite landed, that's experience. And failure is that experience. It's understanding what went wrong and doing something about it differently next time. Leverage. Don't let zombies kill the buzz. What do I mean by that? Within your organization, there's going to be the naysayers, the, oh, that's never going to work. Engage them because it will work. And secondly, don't let poor quality spoil it. Because you can create some really nasty apps. I've made some myself, put my hands up. Make sure you kill them off quickly because actually the platform can be as good as you make it. And finally, nurture. Ideas grow arms and legs all the time. Some of my colleagues know this all too well. So make sure you guide what those ideas grow into. Because if you don't, you might end up with the next zombie. I don't think it's strategic versus creative. I think it's both. To create the best Power Platform ever, you need to bring these two parts together. You'll be pleased to know that's all I'm going to say. At this point, we'd like to open the floor for questions. If you do have any questions, please engage whichever platform that you're on, and we'll come to those in just a moment. At that point, I'd just like to thank you all ever so much for listening at this point, and we'll open the floor. Okay, so the first question that we've got in is about, guess what, licensing. You'll never guess I prepared for this one, simply because I knew this would come up. Licensing, as with all Microsoft products, may not be the most straightforward. I mentioned seeded licenses in the presentation, and actually this can really cause some confusion. If you're on an enterprise license or a frontline worker license, you may already have access to this platform. And in fact, some of you will already be using it, which is great. But it does come with terms and conditions. So what I'm going to try and do here is just very briefly explain what the seeded licenses give you. So F1, F3, E1, E3 and E5. Those are our frontline, F1, F3, and enterprise, E1, E3 and E5. As we go across, all 5 of these platforms can use Canvas apps without premium connectors and not external data sources because they're premium connectors. So therefore, what does that mean? Well, that means you could create Canvas apps connecting to SharePoint as your data source. And actually, those tools may be enough to get you going. You can't use Power BI unless you've got another Power BI license or you're on E5. But on the right-hand side, you'll see that there are some other bits here. So there are some limitations on Power Automate as far as the number of steps that you can use. There are some utilizations on SharePoint, specific limits for frontline workers. But this year in particular, Microsoft have really pushed Power Apps into the Teams environment. And so there are 2 additional functionalities which weren't there a few years ago, where you can actually use a light version of Dataverse and a light version of Power Virtual Agents directly in Teams. Now, some people have been utilizing this very successfully, but just bear in mind it's not the full fat version of virtual agents and Dataverse. Again, there are specific limits that apply. Now, if you don't have one of these, or you want to do something beyond those basic functionalities, Power Apps is licensed in 3 ways. First, there's a Power Apps license. Now, this was changed on the 1st of October this year. If you've already got Power Apps licenses, grandfather rights apply. However, if you're coming into it new, a per app license, which means I've developed one application and I want to share that with an individual in my organization using a premium connector or Dataverse, it's £3.80 per user, per app, per month. Now on the old scheme, it was app and portal. Here it's app or portal. Or you could license per user. So I might have 100 apps that I want to share with, maybe not, let's go 10. I've got 10 apps I want to share with my users across the organization. How do I license them all? You do it per user, and that way they've got unlimited access to whatever it is that you want within the platform. And that's £15.10 per user per month. I've also put the US dollar price in there, which is why you can see why these numbers are so strange. Now, on the 1st of October, sorry, the 1st of November this year, at the Ignite conference, Microsoft launched something called Pay As You Go, which sounds exciting and actually is exciting, because if you think about this, if you've got users that are utilizing apps irregularly, what this means is I could have an app that somebody logs into maybe twice a year because they need to do a quarterly review or maybe an appraisal. This way, you only charged when a user accesses the app in any calendar month. So I log into the app in January, I get charged for one accessing for one app in that month. If I access it any number of times in that month, it's still one access. If I then go into February and don't access it, I don't get charged. So it's done on a consumption basis. Hopefully that explains kind of a little bit about PowerApps licensing, if you're on an enterprise license, or if you're going to go to do PowerApps separately. Okay, so we've got some more questions coming in. Could you expand on Dataverse, please? This is a tool that combines data from various sources, or does the data have to be stored there? I assume if yes, then it would be in Azure. Thanks. Great question. Okay, I need to be careful of time here because I've got a very dangerous opportunity to run on, but Dataverse is a database that is kind of stored in Azure. But what it does is it takes the data forms and stores them in the right place for that data form, if that makes sense. It's all stored within Azure, but you might have an Azure database. You've also got Azure Blob Storage. You've also got all sorts of other tools to manage storage, and Dataverse does that for you. You don't need to think, oh, I'm going to have some images here and I should put that into Blob Storage. Dataverse does it for you. It's all stored in platform. Now, there are ways to draw data into Dataverse. You can do that on a one-off basis, or you can do it via pipeline. You can also use Power Virtual Agents and Power Automate to do that on your behalf. But it is an ecosystem in its own right. I mentioned earlier on, think about it as a database. So if you're on the uninitiated side, just think about it like a database. But if you're on the technical side, it's everything. It does all of the backups, it does all the security, it does all the management of storage, it does all the storage itself and identifies which forms, which place, which location. I will stop there because there are other questions, but that might be something that we might be able to take offline. Again, pop to the Microsoft website because there's a lot of information there on Dataverse itself. Another question here is, how self-intuitive is the platform? You mentioned that Power Platform is or can be low code and availability to everyday users. Do you believe a non-IT business can manage their own applications using the components of the Power Platform without dedicated training? This is a great question. I wouldn't be standing here today if I didn't do this. I have no background in coding. I'm not an IT specialist. I'm a business person. Yep, I'm a technical business person, but I've not got any qualification. That's maybe not strictly true, but I don't have any coding qualification. So I've come to this, and within the Microsoft world, we call my sort of person a citizen developer, somebody that's not come from the IT fraternity. These platforms are super intuitive, and if somebody doesn't quite get it or wants a little bit more support, Microsoft's got a free learning platform that actually, and actually every month they do kind of challenges and support and webinars. There's taster sessions that Microsoft run. Seriously, Microsoft Power Platform is super intuitive. PowerApps has been, Canvas apps is as simple as building something in PowerPoint. Power Virtual Agents, again, it's really well laid out. It's really question and answers. You can build something really simply there. Power Automate starts to become a little bit more complicated because you really do need to think about the logic, but again, very self-explanatory. And Power BI on the surface, you can build from data very simply. I think the challenge here comes when you want to build something more complex. That's when you need to start to maybe think about an IT process rather than just how do I use the tools. So to answer your question, I would say a bit of both, but the primary question, how self-intuitive is the platform? Very, because it's been designed for me, the citizen developer, not, I don't know, let's say a C# developer. It's been designed for a non-technical specialist. Okay, what happens with Office 365 Premium and not enterprise licensing? Good question. Office 365 Premium doesn't, not that I'm aware of, contain anything other than the seeded access to Power Apps, Canvas apps. So you would again need to buy one of the licenses which I referred to earlier on to utilize the Power Apps part. Again, Power BI, Power Automate and Power Virtual Agents are then licensed separately. Can Dataverse synchronize with an ERP? Or you could connect directly into the ERP. Good question. I would say depends on the use case. Do you require everything in the ERP to be copied over to Dataverse? Probably not. Why are you copying it to Dataverse? Because you've already got potentially a very good database within your ERP. So there's two ways to look at this question. To answer it specifically, yes, you can copy everything from your ERP over. But actually, what is it you're trying to achieve? If I'm in Power Apps and I want to query your ERP, I could query it via Power Automate. If I'm trying to just draw a single piece of data across or a record across to update it, you can do that within the Power Platform without replicating your entire database. Vice versa, if actually your ERP is, let's say, legacy, perhaps you do want to copy it over the whole thing over into Dataverse and then build out applications from the back of that. You can absolutely do that. You can also push data back into your ERP, but again, it requires a connection to be open and also authentication on the ERP side. There may be some specifics that you need to consider there. Okay, unless there's any other questions, I'd like to kind of wrap up the session there. Thank you all for attending today. I hope you've enjoyed it. We've got a huge amount of experience here within the Cloud2 and the BCN Group. And so if you're looking for some support, reach out. If you're looking for some help, we can support you. Thank you very much for your time today.